background where madness was a family tradition. And I started seeing the school shrink when I was like in 6th grade and stuff. And I kind of had a breakdown when I was 16, and then I kind of had another breakdown when I was 18. And the 18 breakdown, oh man, it was really, really awful. And when I got out of that breakdown, I got out of it by becoming an artist, becoming a lesbian, becoming a feminist.
I grew up in a middle-class Catholic family, knowing that I wasn't quite like everybody else, but not really realizing I was a lesbian until I was 18 or 19. And it is the single most significant thing, really, about who I am, because everything kind of went from there. Starting with telling the wrong people and being hospitalized for being a lesbian, because it was before 1972 and homosexuality was still considered a disorder. That experience, however, also led me to finding the lesbian feminist community, then to moving to Vancouver, to having an opportunity to do Still Sane, which creates a big part of my autobiography. After I came to Vancouver and I met up with Persimmon, who was already a bit of a rock star artist here in Vancouver, and when I gave her the usual, oh yes, I had a kind of pretty tight little capsule of, I had been locked up, then I got out and life went on, and she was someone who not only asked the next question, but really asked it from a very knowing place.
Sheila and I were together. We had a short and intense relationship. And part of what connected us was psychiatry stuff and breakdown stuff. Out of all the artwork I was showing, the things that really were the most affecting to me personally was stuff to do with these people in my life. I asked Sheila if she'd like to make a couple of pieces about her experience in the institution with me, and that she could write a bit of stuff, and we would just put, a few sentences on, like write them on the pieces and stuff, and we'd do, 1 or 2 pieces. And so we started, and it went on and on and on, and it was like incredibly intense and kind of really amazing. It was the story of Sheila's 3 years in and out of mental hospitals for being a lesbian, including shock treatment and isolation and all kinds of things.
I wrote the stories. I never really had particularly seen myself as a writer, but I did notice that once I started writing one, the things that came up, the things I remembered, the details, and it was kind of cathartic to just write it all down.
Sheila and I would work together really intensively, and we were very, basically she did the writing, I did the artwork, but I was her editor and she was my co-conspirator. Like, she came up with a lot of the ideas for the sculpture, and she was always saying, okay, that's working, oh no, that's not working. And so we had our fingers all over both pies. And so did a lot of other people.
From my end, we went from one piece that would kind of say it all to the pieces kind of kept growing. I went from one piece to 27 pieces, and it filled this Women in Focus gallery. It was the lesbian feminist movement that really supported Still Sane and came out en masse, came to fundraisers, and turned up at the opening incredibly. But at that opening were, I can't even count the numbers of how many were people who had been locked up, many of whom had never told anyone. It was a place to say, yeah, me too. And I think it was really moving for people. I know it was really moving for me.
It was really an important piece at the time, because at the time there was a huge amount of silence around being queer. There was a huge amount of silence around having any kind of psychiatric history. And there wasn't a lot of art that incorporated writing with visual art, and there wasn't a lot of art that told direct personal stories.
Press gang was always for a small shoestring, really, press. We're always very brave about printing the things that people might not like or might think was too controversial. Barbara Kuhn, who was the publisher there, she had seen the Still Sane show and was just determined that it should be a book. We put the word out, and a collective formed. There were 6 of us who did everything, including getting the funds to pay the press gang printers to print the book. Now I work as a mental health worker. I have for the last almost 20 years in a residential facility for 10 mentally ill women who can't live on their own, but for sure don't need to be in the Riverview nut house, which most of them were emptied out of. Being able to talk about these things has really formed who I am. Still Sane was considered a brave thing because it was it's pictures of sculptures. It's all about grim things. But it was a huge success in terms of it mattering to people.